Hi, it's Chris Titley here on episode number 3 of the Faybl Conversations. And today we're joined by Sean Dessaix, founder of Imperium Financial Planning. Sean, thanks so much for being part of this series.
No worries. Pleasure to be here. How are you, Chris?
I'm very, very well for a Thursday. How about yourself?
Yeah, very well. It's a Thursday before a long weekend, so spirits are up.
Spirits are up indeed. So, Sean, when you first started using Faybl, what stood out to you, especially coming from a compliance background?
What surprised me, I guess I was pretty light into adoption of AI at the time. I was pretty new into starting my own business. My initial experience with Faybl was when I was still working in a compliance role at a licensee. What surprised me was that there are quite a few competitors out there. Faybl, I think, is just trying to get that whole end-to-end solution on the AI focused on financial advice and that financial advice community. I think that was a standout. Just from the mission purpose of the software initially was a nice point of difference.
And Sean, how are you currently using IntelliFlow within your advice process today?
Yep, I like the use of the word currently because it's something that's evolving as is AI, of course. So I principally use IntelliFlow at the moment as my somewhat as a CRM and definitely as my a statement advice generator. And so a lot of the client data is obviously stored there. And part of my journey as a financial planner, I purchased a client book off a retiring financial planner. And he was very much a paper-based advisor. So lots of big manila folders. So I was looking at a substantial sum of money to export it from his CRM into IntelliFlow, or scan and then enter all these fields. What Faybl was able to do was, using all the PDFs I had from his, at least he did have electronic files as well, using the PDFs, just automatically feed all the fact finds straight through. And then where I wanted as well, I could use Faybl to obviously generate the power planning requests, which just speeds up a lot of things and saves a lot of money.
You mentioned acquiring a client book with largely paper-based records. What did that transition into IntelliFlow look like before using Faybl, and how did Faybl change that process for you?
Well, definitely, because I was already a user of Faybl at the time, so I'd started to position that this is going to be a solution to what I saw as one of the issues with buying a book that was, whilst the client, great clients and all the rest, it's just the style of client file maintenance is very different to my vision for the future. So it really closed that gap.
Once the client data is sitting in IntelliFlow, what does Faybl do from there? How does it get you to a finished SOA?
Yeah, completely transforms the experience because there's certain things, as with all of us, there's certain things we like doing, certain things we don't. The one thing I don't love is repetitive data entry. So being able to remove that mind-numbing experience where I could focus on the next steps was very helpful. You got 5 fact finds loaded in a number of minutes. I can get underway with the advice generation.
With that manual work removed, what does your time look like now as an advisor?
Client meetings, I think as I was saying just before this kicked off, there's 17 client meetings this week. That would not be happening if I was having to do the data entry. Or I'd be having less money to take home if I had to be paying a power planner to do fact find one after another.
And Sean, given your compliance background, how has Faybl changed the way you approach SOA vetting and compliance risk?
Oh, it's transformative. As you know, I've come from a long compliance background. SOA vetting is a core part of the, controls we have in place, a bit of preliminary vetting before an advice document goes out the door, usually sample-based, conducted by a human, thus prone to the inherent flaws of humans, which that's us. But with the right agent built into Faybl, and I think it does go that step beyond a co-pilot or equivalent, just because it is built for financial advice. So, with the right agents and SOA pre-vetting checklist, it provides 100% upfront compliance vetting, which gives me a lot of comfort. I'm not going to have to go back and rework SOAs if compliance come back 6 months later. And compliance themselves have comfort that, there's nothing to see here, much as they will still have a look anyway.
And in regards to feedback, what impact has this had on the speed and quality of the advice your clients receive?
The pacing of getting SOAs out the door, that is definitely a big positive factor. The other one's too, the flexibility in the advice document. So, no matter which system you use, there's a template based there, and you usually either employ a third-party vendor to enhance that document. So I've scrapped that third-party piece, and I just use the AI within Faybl to generate enhanced basis wording or to better explain the modeling that might be there on page 17 to clarify it into terms the client understands. So that's the real transformative difference.
And Sean, where do you see the biggest workflow gains still ahead as you go deeper with Faybl?
Well, particularly so because I haven't as heavily yet deep dived into the recording of file notes, which is probably silly in many respects. That's often where financial planners start with the AI journey. I think that will be a further enhancement because you go from initial meeting or fact find meeting, SOA can be generated almost the same day and potentially issued the same day. It may not always be practical or beneficial for the client, but certainly an intra-week experience for the client rather than weeks and weeks.
In more dynamic markets that we're seeing at the moment, how does the combination of Faybl and IntelliFlow help you respond faster to client needs?
I mean, many different levels. One is obviously at speed, being able to produce multiple ROAs. So if adjustments to portfolios are needed or you need to pull out of a certain managed fund or stock, we can do that at pace, or at least communicate that movement at pace to clients. The other piece is just, I use different research houses. I can import some of their information and other stuff publicly available on the internet and ask Faybl to compress it into something that's going to be digestible. And because it has access to my clients and even the client emails, they get a sense of what kind of messaging works with clients. So they can give me a communication that's going to be understood by the client.
Yeah, and the ability for you to be more dynamic and more present with your clients, how important is that for you and your practice?
Again, critical because as AI seeps into all the classic areas where the human brain interfacing with the computer is the best way to control things, it's not anymore. So the space that's left for an advisor where we still thrive is the relationship building. So it allows me more time for that. I'm very active on whether it's phone calls, videos, house visits, WhatsApp, so I can just spend a lot more time with clients.
And broadly speaking, has this changed who you can afford to serve as a client, particularly younger or lower balanced clients?
Definitely. I mean, part of my work is I'm very much talking to the next generations of my existing clients. And sometimes they're adults, but only in their 20s. They have almost very minimal assets. But I can see, obviously, a lot of value add I can bring because it's decades away from retirement. Or teaching good habits early can have a great effect. So compressing the time spent on an SOA means it's a far less expensive exercise, which whilst I was willing to absorb those costs, it means I don't have to absorb anywhere near as many costs. So it opens up that scope tremendously.
And just more of a macro question for you, Sean. How important is it for advisors to treat AI as a core part of how they operate going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't consider myself an expert. I'm just an adopter. I think this pace of change means we're forever novices, but keeping that open mind and just seeing it as a core part of your function or core part of your, the tech stack's almost an outdated term now, but a core part of your business structure. It means that, yes, anyone who comes on board will have to have that as part of their modus operandi.
Now, if we were to sit down again in 12 months, how do you see your business changing with this technology in place?
Look, probably 3 times the number of clients. I think a lot of I'm bedding down things at the moment. So I think once I'm through that 6-month period, the next 6 months can be focused on expanding the client base, probably beyond what would have been traditionally capable 10 years ago. That's how I see the two.
And one final question, Sean. What does this shift mean for the future of financial advice in Australia? Are you excited?
Very much so. I mean, it's gone through a dark time. Royal Commission, FASEA, a lot of advisors leaving the industry. There's a bit of a lack, particularly in Australia, I think. That is going to be filled in part by a new cadre, and they'll be good because they'll be very, I think, in favour of adapting the new technology, but a great opportunity for existing advisors that can adjust the way they tackle their processes and service many more clients than they would have thought possible. So exciting time.
Sean, really appreciate the insights, especially around how Faybl and IntelliFlow are working together in practice. Thanks so much for your time. Looking forward to catching up.
Pleasure. It's an important message to get out there.